Welcome back. Still with me in the studio, Joe Cimino, the Corporate Solutions Director at Financial Fitness Training, and Jim Millar, MD of Financial Fitness Training. We're talking about controlling your costs and not getting yourself into a debt situation where you have to go to debt counseling, which is where a lot of people are finding themselves these days. And as Joe was saying earlier, it's going to get worse with all the increases coming in place. You were talking about a tip just before we went to the break, Joe.
Yeah, one of the things people don't understand is, like, for example, when I bought my car cash, I started saving money. So I had an investment payment versus a debt payment. The example is this. As long as you keep buying new cars every 5 or 6 years, that interest that you pay, if you were to take one of those vehicles' interests and multiply it over a 20-year period, it turns into almost R1,000,000. So one of the things I impress upon the delegates that we train is that buying a new car every 5 or 6 years costs you R1,000,000 out of your future. Now you need to remember that, because I often talk to people, how many of you have $1,000,000? None of them have $1,000,000. They wouldn't know what to do with $1,000,000. I mean, we keep hearing about all the people who win the lotto and are broke after 3 years. So even when they get the money, they don't know what to do with it. Yeah. But they need to understand that if they continue to use credit throughout their lifestyle, if you're paying 14% on a vehicle and your investment's giving you 5%, you're going backwards, and that's what they really need to understand.
Yeah, but hang on. That's all very well and all very easy to say. But realistically, Jim, how many people can walk into a car dealership and say, I want that car in bright pink and there's 550,000 Rand?
Well, the first problem is they think they need to buy a 500,000 Rand car. If you want to get the old school, old guy's hat on, your parents or my parents probably never bought a new car. The requirement to have the latest model is driving people into financing every vehicle that they own. A friend of mine has a motor dealership where he sells very beautiful older cars. And for 100 to 150,000, you can buy a 5-year-old car that is absolutely immaculate and drive a nice vehicle. But I don't know why people want to keep doing this.
Where did this switch come about? Because I remember growing up and my parents telling me, and this is now, 30 years ago, my parents telling me, you want that? Yeah. You save, and then you go and buy it. We didn't, you're right, we didn't have credit. The only thing that you bought that you didn't pay cash for was probably your home in those days. Where did this switch come about and why? Have you guys had a look at that?
Yeah. He knows.
Yeah, well, it essentially developed out of the banks realizing that they were making quite a bit of money out of lending, and that the risk of losing wasn't not as high as they may have thought in the past. So they started off with lending against homes, then they were lending against motor vehicles, and then credit cards and personal loans and overdraft facilities. And essentially banks became fairly clear that only maybe 10% or 15% of the people would default or become problem loans, and the other 85 or 90% would pay with every last penny that they actually earn. So it became a great business for the lenders, and they taught people that it was a good idea how to borrow. Yeah.
And with the vehicles, Jeremy, everybody has to have a new one when their car, and I hear this, oh, my car's out of warranty now, I have to get a new one. And I try to tell them, if your car's out of warranty, it's probably out of payment as well. So if you're paying 3,500 Rand a month on that car and it's paid off, you could actually put 3,500 Rand a month in repair into that vehicle, which you're not going to need for quite a while. But they just feel like they have to have that new car. They make up all these excuses on why. And no, it's not a babe magnet for the young guys out there. Just thought I'd throw that in.
Yep.
Are people, when I say people, your banks and your insurers and all the rest of it, are they amenable to sitting down with you and discussing terms? Are they prepared to renegotiate? I say that because a few years back, I remember when I still had a bond, I approached my bank because I'd been approached by another bank who said, we'll give you 0.75% less on your bond. And I went to my bank and I said, I've been offered 0.75% less on my bond. And they said, yeah, we'll match it. And I thought to myself, so that was easy. Why didn't I do that a year ago?
So you educated yourself. Yeah. And that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of the educated consumer. I mean, another good one is car insurance premiums. Your car devalues every year, so in many cases, if you don't get an accident, your car insurance premium should come down.
Yeah.
But in many cases, they go up. So I teach people, go get 3 other quotes, and then challenge your car insurance, and your premiums will come down. Mine come down every year. But some people know it, and they don't do it. So it goes back to that discipline thing you said earlier.
But are people amenable to doing that? Are banks, are insurers, are underwriters?
Business is very competitive these days. So any business will work with you if you are going in with an educated negotiation. You're saying, I can get a better deal at this bank. Are you willing to match it, or shall I go? You know, they will negotiate. But the majority of credit seekers are actually trying to get the last little few rand out of the lender. So they will take whatever terms they're given. You know, instead of buying a home for 750,000, they want to buy a home for 1.5 million, and they can't quite make it on the credit score. So they basically, if the bank comes back and says it's prime plus 1.5, they take it because they basically had no negotiating power. So the consumer puts themselves in a position where they'd be taken advantage of, and they are taken advantage of.
Would you agree with Joe's statement that you should be going out, getting 3 quotes from whoever, whether it's your insurer or your bank?
Yes. Well, you should be, again, the educated consumer. You should know what is available in the market in any particular product, whether it's credit, whether insurance or investments.
Okay, but hang on. Wait, then this comes back to another aspect that we haven't even touched on here. And that's the advertising of all these financial services. Because you look at the advert in the paper, and Bank A is saying there are no charges, you can change accounts, you can shift money, all the rest of it. But there are charges somewhere, everywhere. And we're being bamboozled by different messages that we're being given. That's my opinion.
And at the end you hear T's and C's apply.
Yeah.
And there's where your T's and C's are right there. And it's going back to what, and I hate to keep repeating myself, but educating yourself. Educate yourself before you do it. Scope out a couple different home loans. Try and get some different, if most people listening tonight would call a few different car insurance companies and get some quotes, they would save a couple $100 a month right away, just there, and do it every year. So it's up to them to be proactive, and they're not. They would rather be consumers, and they're, you know, I can understand, because a lot of the people who we see, you know, a week after payday, they're broke, and that affects their whole lifestyle. And they, you run around a few days with money in your pocket, you're on top of the world, and then it falls out of your pocket. You don't feel like being proactive. You feel like going to the pub.
No.
Is it a depressing situation that you guys are working in with these people?
Well, a lot of people are in a depressed situation, and we find that even they may not even want to come to a training program because they actually don't want to face it. But the other side of the coin is there are many people, many of our clients who have achieved their financial goals, who are in their 50s, early 60s, traveling the world, basically living debt-free. They can essentially more or less do whatever they want to do, because they have achieved that financial independence. And they've done it through fairly simple things, old-fashioned ideas that have gone out of fashion. Investing money, a little bit of their income is invested every month into investments that are efficient, that work. So there's no rocket science really. It's just that as you've said, the advertising and the marketing is all pushing people toward consuming now and pay for it later, instead of consuming a little bit less, investing some of your money, and becoming financially independent.
Do we have a problem with this Alcoholics Anonymous thing, with admitting and denying? Are we a nation that is living in financial denial?
Definitely, but all you have to understand is the normal evolution of life. You're single, you meet Mr. or Mrs. Almost Right now. I mean, almost Mr. or Mrs. Right, sorry.
Yep.
And with the high divorce
Your future
rates.
ex-fiancé.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Or financee, depending on how you look at it. And you get married, and you want to buy a house right away, and that's understandable. And then you have children, and they cost money, and so you don't want to give up that lifestyle. And people need to understand they need to start cutting back rather than continue that single mentality that they're using whilst they're married with children, because school costs a lot of money nowadays as well. And kids, I heard you got to feed them.
You're kidding. Right. If there was one thing, because we're fast running out of time now, if there was one thing that you could say to anyone watching this program who is sitting there going, actually, maybe I'm in denial, maybe I should be admitting that I've got a problem here, what would you be saying to them? What's the first step?
Understand that you get a paycheck every month, and that the only way you will become financially independent is that some of that money that you earn every month is working for you, instead of you continuously working more or less 100% of the time for the bank and whoever else is essentially draining your wealth.
Right.
So why are you working? To become financially independent someday? Well, if you don't start today working toward financial independence, you're never going to get there.
Joe?
Good rule, stop using the credit cards immediately. I mean, when I go over at McDonald's and I see the amount of people using credit cards to buy a 29.99 meal. Now, it's not because they're looking in their wallet and they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 500. I'll use the credit card. There's nothing in that wallet. And you keep using those credit cards, you keep digging a deeper and deeper hole. Here's a simple question you can ask all of your fans out there, Jeremy. When you got your credit card, you said you were going to pay it in full. Do you pay it in full? That'll tell you you have the problem.